Good evening, and welcome to another night of Ts&Zzz. Ts&Zzz is a podcast to help you get better sleep. We use long, boring, legal agreements as a way to distract our minds and gently drift off to sleep. I am your host, Scott Elchison, and tonight you'll be listening to Part 2 of Airbnb's Terms of Service. Tonight's episode is narrated by yours truly. Now, close your eyes, inhale, exhale, and let's begin. (15) Resolving complaints and damage claims. If a member provides evidence that another member damaged their real or personal property, the complaining member can seek compensation through the Resolution Center. If the complaining member escalates a damage claim to Airbnb, the other member will be given an opportunity to respond. If the responding member agrees to pay or Airbnb determines in its sole discretion that they are responsible for the damage claim, Airbnb via Airbnb payments can collect any sums required to cover the damage claim from the responding member and or against any security deposit. You agree that Airbnb may seek to recover from you under any insurance policies you maintain, and that Airbnb may also pursue against you any remedies it may have available under applicable law. You agree to cooperate in good faith, provide any information Airbnb requests, execute documents, and take further reasonable action in connection with damage claims, member complaints, claims under insurance policies, or other claims related to your provision or use of host services. 16. Airbnb's role. We offer a platform that enables members to publish, offer, search for, and book host services. While we work hard to ensure our members have great experiences using Airbnb, we do not and cannot control the conduct of guests and hosts. You acknowledge that Airbnb has the right, but does not have any obligation, to monitor the use of the Airbnb platform and verify information provided by our members. For example, we may review, disable access to, remove, or edit content to operate, secure, and improve the Airbnb platform, including for fraud prevention, risk assessment, investigation, and customer support purposes, ensure members' compliance with these terms, comply with applicable law or the order or requirement of a court, law enforcement, or other administrative agency or governmental body, address content that we determine is harmful or objectionable, take actions set out in these terms, and maintain and enforce any quality or eligibility criteria, including by removing listings that don't meet quality and eligibility criteria. Members acknowledge and agree that Airbnb administers its policies and standards, including decisions about whether and how to apply them to a particular situation, at its sole discretion. Members agree to cooperate with and assist Airbnb in good faith, and to provide Airbnb with such information and take such actions as may be reasonably requested by Airbnb with respect to any investigation undertaken by Airbnb regarding the use or abuse of the Airbnb platform. Airbnb is not acting as an agent for any member except for where Airbnb Payments acts as a collection agent as provided in the payments terms. 17. Member accounts. You must register an account to access and use many features of the Airbnb platform. Registration is only permitted for legal entities, partnerships, and natural persons who are 18 years or older. You represent and warrant that you are not a person or entity barred from using the Airbnb platform under the laws of the United States, your place of residence, or any other applicable jurisdiction. You must provide accurate, current, and complete information during registration and keep your account information up to date. You may not register more than one account or transfer your account to someone else. You are responsible for maintaining the confidentiality and security of your account credentials and may not disclose your credentials to any third party. You are responsible and liable for activities conducted through your account and must immediately notify Airbnb if you suspect that your credentials have been lost, stolen, or your account is otherwise compromised. If and as permitted by applicable law, we may, but have no obligation to ask you to provide identification or other information, undertake checks designed to help verify your identity or background, screen you against third-party databases or other sources and request reports from service providers, and obtain reports from public records of criminal convictions or sex offender registrations or their local equivalents. 18. Disclaimer of warranties. We provide the Airbnb platform and all content as is without warranty of any kind, and we disclaim all warranties, whether express or implied. For example, we do not endorse or warrant the existence, conduct, performance, safety, quality, legality, or suitability of any guest, host service, listing, or third party. We do not warrant the performance or non-interruption of the Airbnb platform, and we do not warrant that verification. Identity or background checks conducted on listings or members will identify past misconduct or prevent future misconduct. Any references to a member or listing being verified indicate only that the member or listing or Airbnb has completed a relevant verification or identification process and nothing else. The disclaimers in these terms apply to the maximum extent permitted by law. If you have statutory rights or warranties we cannot disclaim, the duration of any such statutorily required rights or warranties will be limited to the maximum extent permitted by law. 19. Limitations on liability. Neither Airbnb nor any other party involved in creating, producing, or delivering the Airbnb platform or any content will be liable for any incidental, special, exemplary, or consequential damages, including lost profits, loss of data or loss of goodwill, service interruption, computer damage or system failure, or the cost of substitute products or services, or for any damages for personal or bodily injury or emotional distress arising out of or in connection with these terms. The use of or inability to use the Airbnb platform or any content, any communications, interactions, or meetings you may have with someone you interact or meet with through, or as a result of your use of the Airbnb platform, or publishing or booking of a listing, including the provision or use of host services, whether based on warranty, contract, tort, product liability, or any other legal theory, and whether or not Airbnb has been informed of the possibility of such damage, even if a limited remedy set out in these terms is found to have failed of its essential purpose. Except for our obligation to transmit payments to hosts under these terms, or make payments under the Airbnb host guarantee or Japan host insurance. In no event will Airbnb's aggregate liability for any claim or dispute arising out of or in connection with these terms, your interaction with any members, or your use of or inability to use the Airbnb platform, any content, or any host service exceed to guests the amount you paid as a guest during the 12-month period prior to the event giving rise to the liability, to hosts the amount paid to you as a host in the 12-month period prior to the event giving rise to the liability, or to anyone else, $100. These limitations of liability and damages are fundamental elements of the agreement between you and Airbnb. If applicable law does not allow the limitations of liability set out in these terms, the above limitations may not apply to you. 20. Indemnification. To the maximum extent permitted by applicable law, you agree to release, defend, indemnify, and hold Airbnb harmless from and against any claims, liabilities, damages, losses, and expenses, including, without limitation, reasonable legal and accounting fees arising out of or in any way connected with your breach of these terms or our policies or standards, your improper use of the Airbnb platform, your interaction with any member, stay at an accommodation, participation in an experience or other host service, including without limitation any injuries, losses or damages of any kind arising in connection with or as a result of such interaction, stay, participation, or use. Your failure or a failure at your direction to accurately report, collect, or remit taxes, or your breach of any laws, regulations, or third-party rights such as intellectual property or privacy rights. 21. Contracting entities. Based on your country of residence or establishment and what you are doing on the Airbnb platform, Schedule 1 below sets out the Airbnb entity with whom you are contracting. If we identify through the Airbnb platform an Airbnb entity other than the one set out on Schedule 1 as being responsible for a product, feature, or transaction, the Airbnb entity so identified as your contracting entity with respect to that product, feature, or transaction. If you change your country of residence or establishment, the Airbnb company you contract with and the applicable version of the terms of service will be determined by your new country of residence or establishment, from the date on which your country of residence or establishment changes. 22. United States governing law and venue. If you reside or have your place of establishment in the United States, these terms will be interpreted in accordance with the laws of the state of California and the United States of America, without regard to conflict of law provisions. Judicial proceedings that are excluded from the arbitration agreement in Section 23 must be brought in state or federal court in San Francisco, California, unless we both agree to some other location. You and we both consent to venue and personal jurisdiction in San Francisco, California. 23. United States Dispute Resolution and Arbitration Agreement. 23.1. Application. This arbitration agreement only applies to you if your country of residence or establishment is the United States. If your country of residence or establishment is not the United States, and you nevertheless attempt to bring any legal claim against Airbnb in the United States, this arbitration agreement will apply for determination of the threshold issue of whether this Section 23 applies to you, and all other threshold determinations, including residency, arbitrability, venue, and applicable law. 23.2. Overview of dispute resolution process. Airbnb is committed to participating in a consumer-friendly dispute resolution process. To that end, these terms provide for a depart process for individuals to whom this Section 23 applies, an informal negotiation directly with Airbnb's customer service team described in paragraph 23.3, and if necessary a binding arbitration administered by the American Arbitration Association. You and Airbnb each retain the right to seek relief in small claims court as an alternative to arbitration. 23.3. Mandatory pre-arbitration dispute resolution and notification. At least 30 days prior to initiating an arbitration, you and Airbnb each agree to notify the other party of the dispute in writing and attempt in good faith to negotiate an informal resolution. You must send your notice of dispute to Airbnb by mailing it to Airbnb's agent for service, CSC Lawyers Incorporating Service, 2710 Gateway Oaks Drive, Suite 150N, Sacramento, California 95833. Airbnb will send its notice of dispute to the email address associated with your Airbnb account. A notice of dispute must include the party's name and preferred contact information, a brief description of the dispute, and the relief sought. If the parties are unable to resolve the dispute within the 30-day period, only then may either party commence arbitration by filing a written demand for arbitration with the American Arbitration Association and providing a copy to the other party as specified in the American Arbitration Association rules. 23.4. Agreement to arbitrate. You and Airbnb mutually agree that any dispute, claim, or controversy arising out of or relating to these terms or the applicability, breach, termination, validity, enforcement, or interpretation thereof, or any use of the Airbnb platform, host services, or any content will be settled by binding individual arbitration. If there is a dispute about whether this arbitration agreement can be enforced or applies to our dispute, you and Airbnb agree that the arbitrator will decide that issue. 23.5. Exceptions to arbitration agreement. You and Airbnb each agree that the following causes of action and/or claims for relief are exceptions to the arbitration agreement and will be brought in a judicial proceeding in a court of competent jurisdiction. Any claim or cause of action alleging actual or threatened infringement, misappropriation or violation of a party's copyrights, trademarks, trade secrets, patents, or other intellectual property rights. Any claim or cause of action seeking emergency injunctive relief based on exigent circumstances, or a request for the remedy of public injunctive relief. You and Airbnb agree that the remedy of public injunctive relief will proceed after the arbitration of all arbitrable claims, remedies, or causes of action and will be stayed pending the outcome of the arbitration pursuant to Section 3 of the Federal Arbitration Act. 23.6. Arbitration rules and governing law. This arbitration agreement evidences a transaction in interstate commerce, and the Federal Arbitration Act governs all substantive and procedural interpretation and enforcement of this provision. The arbitration will be administered by American Arbitration Association in accordance with the Consumer Arbitration Rules and/or other American Arbitration Association arbitration rules determined to be applicable by the American Arbitration Association then in effect, except as modified here. The American Arbitration Association rules are available at www.aedr.org. In order to initiate arbitration, a completed written demand must be filed with the American Arbitration Association and provided to the other party, as specified in the American Arbitration Association rules. Ad break. Tonight, Better Sleep is brought to you by Magic Spoon. Nothing complements a good night's sleep better than a hearty breakfast. Growing up, that meant diving into a cold bowl of cereal and reading the back of the box. However, as I got older, I started eating less cereal because I was looking for healthier breakfast options. That is, until I tried Magic Spoon. It's a new cereal brand that has 0 sugar, 11 grams of protein, and only 3 net grams of carbs in each serving. This cereal is shockingly good. I tried the variety pack, which included multiple flavors: cocoa, fruity, frosted, and blueberry. The fruity flavor is next level delicious. It brought me back to the days of brown bag lunches, high school crushes, and big yellow buses. Come ride this wave of nostalgia and try it for yourself. Go to magicspoon.com/bettersleep to grab a variety pack and try it today. And be sure to use our promo code BETTERSLEEP at checkout to get free shipping. And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee, so if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. That's magicspoon.com/bettersleep and use the code BETTERSLEEP for free shipping. We thank Magic Spoon for sponsoring the podcast. Hold on to the dream. And at break. 23.7. Modification to American Arbitration Association rules, arbitration hearing, location. In order to make the arbitration most convenient to you, Airbnb agrees that any required arbitration hearing may be conducted, at your option, in the U.S. county where you reside, in San Francisco County via phone or video conference, or if all parties agree, by solely the submission of documents to the arbitrator. 23.8. Modification of American Arbitration Association rules, attorneys' fees and costs. Your arbitration fees and your share of arbitrator compensation shall be governed by the American Arbitration Association rules and, where appropriate, limited by the American Arbitration Association consumer rules. If such costs are determined by the arbitrator to be excessive, Airbnb will pay all arbitration fees and expenses. Either party may make a request that the arbitrator award attorney's fees and costs upon proving that the other party has asserted a claim, cross-claim, or defense that is groundless in fact or law, brought in bad faith or for the purpose of harassment, or is otherwise frivolous, as allowed by applicable law and the American Arbitration Association rules. 23.9. Arbitrator's decision. The arbitrator's decision will include the essential findings and conclusions upon which the arbitrator based the award. Judgment on the arbitration award may be entered in any court with proper jurisdiction. The arbitrator may award any relief allowed by law or the American Arbitration Association rules, but declaratory or injunctive relief may be awarded only on an individual basis and only to the extent necessary to provide relief warranted by the claimant's individual claim. 23.10. Jury trial waiver. You and Airbnb acknowledge and agree that we are each waiving the right to a trial by jury as to all arbitrable disputes. 23.11. No class actions or representative proceedings. You and Airbnb acknowledge and agree that, to the fullest extent permitted by law, we are each waiving the right to participate as a plaintiff or class member in any purported class action lawsuit, class-wide arbitration, private attorney general action, or any other representative or consolidated proceeding. Unless we agree in writing, the arbitrator may not consolidate more than one party's claims and may not otherwise preside over any form of any class or representative proceeding. If there is a final judicial determination that applicable law precludes enforcement of the waiver contained in this paragraph as to any claim, cause of action, or requested remedy, then that claim, cause of action, or requested remedy, and only that claim, cause of action, or requested remedy, will be severed from this agreement to arbitrate and will be brought in a court of competent jurisdiction. In the event that a claim, cause of action, or requested remedy is severed pursuant to this paragraph, then you and we agree that the claims, causes of action, or requested remedies that are not subject to arbitration will be stayed until all arbitrable claims, causes of action, and requested remedies are resolved by the arbitrator. 23.12. Severability. Except as provided in Section 23.11, in the event that any portion of this arbitration agreement is deemed illegal or unenforceable, such provision will be severed and the remainder of the arbitration agreement will be given full force and effect. 23.13. Changes to agreement to arbitrate. If Airbnb changes this Section 23 after the date you last accepted these terms, you may reject that change by sending us written notice within 30 days of the date the change is effective. Rejecting a new change, however, does not revoke or alter your prior consent to any earlier agreements to arbitrate any dispute between you and Airbnb, which will remain in effect and enforceable as to any dispute between you and Airbnb. 23.14. Survival. Except as provided in Section 23.12 and subject to Section 13.6, this Section 23 will survive any termination of these terms and will continue to apply even if you stop using the Airbnb platform or terminate your Airbnb account. 24. China governing law and dispute resolution. 24.1. China domestic transactions. If you reside or have your place of establishment in China and are contracting with Airbnb China, these terms in this Section 24.1 are governed by the laws of the People's Republic of China. In this situation, any dispute arising from or in connection with these terms or use of the Airbnb platform shall be submitted to the China International Economic and Trade Arbitration Commission for arbitration, which shall be conducted in accordance with the Commission's arbitration rules in effect at the time of applying for arbitration. The arbitral award is final and binding upon both parties. The tribunal shall consist of 3 arbitrators. The seat of the arbitration shall be Beijing. The language of the arbitration shall be English. 24.2. Cross-border transactions. If you reside or have your place of establishment in China and are contracting with Airbnb Incorporated, Airbnb Travel, LLC, Airbnb Ireland UC, or any other non-China entity, these terms in this Section 24.2 are governed by the laws of Singapore. In this situation, any dispute arising out of or in connection with these terms or use of the Airbnb platform, including any question regarding the existence, validity, or termination of these terms, shall be referred to and finally resolved by arbitration administered by the Singapore International Arbitration Centre in accordance with the arbitration rules of the Singapore International Arbitration Centre for the time being in force, which rules are deemed to be incorporated by reference in this clause. The seat of the arbitration shall be Singapore. The tribunal shall consist of 3 arbitrators. The language of the arbitration shall be English. 24.3. Without limitation provisions. The above sections 24.1 and 24.2 are expressed to be without regard to conflict of laws provisions and shall not be construed to limit any rights which Airbnb may have to apply to any court of competent jurisdiction for any order requiring you to perform or be prohibited from performing certain acts and other provisional relief permitted under the laws of Singapore, the People's Republic of China, or any other laws that may apply to you. 25. Rest of world dispute resolution, venue and forum, and governing law. If you reside or have your place of establishment outside of the United States and China, this section applies to you and these terms will be interpreted in accordance with Irish law. The application of the United Nations Convention on Contracts for the international sale of goods is excluded. The choice of law does not impact your rights as a consumer according to the consumer protection regulations of your country of residence. If you are acting as a consumer, you agree to submit to the non-exclusive jurisdiction of the Irish courts. Legal proceedings that you are able to bring against us arising from or in connection with these terms may only be brought in a court located in Ireland or a court with jurisdiction in your place of residence. If Airbnb wishes to enforce any of its rights against you as a consumer, we may do so only in the courts of the jurisdiction in which you are a resident. If you are acting as a business, you agree to submit to the exclusive jurisdiction of the Irish courts. 26. Miscellaneous. 26.1. Other terms incorporated by reference. Our host guarantee terms, Japan host insurance terms, guest refund policy, experiences guest refund policy, content policy, non-discrimination policy, extenuating circumstances policy, policies, standards and other supplemental policies and terms linked to in these terms apply to your use of the Airbnb platform, are incorporated by reference, and form part of your agreement with Airbnb. 26.2. Interpreting these terms. Except as they may be supplemented by additional terms, conditions, policies, guidelines, standards, and in product disclosures, these terms constitute the entire agreement between Airbnb and you pertaining to your access to or use of the Airbnb platform and supersede any and all prior oral or written understanding or agreements between Airbnb and you. These terms do not and are not intended to confer any rights or remedies upon anyone other than you and Airbnb. If any provision of these terms is held to be invalid or unenforceable, except as otherwise indicated in section 23.11 above, such provision will be struck and will not affect the validity and enforceability of the remaining provisions. Where the word will is used in these terms, it connotes an obligation with the same meaning as shall. 26.3. No waiver. Airbnb's failure to enforce any right or provision in these terms will not constitute a waiver of such right or provision unless acknowledged and agreed to by us in writing. Except as expressly set forth in these terms, the exercise by either party of any of its remedies under these terms will be without prejudice to its other remedies under these terms, or otherwise permitted under law. 26.4. Assignment. You may not assign, transfer, or delegate this agreement or your rights and obligations hereunder without Airbnb's prior written consent. Airbnb may without restriction assign, transfer, or delegate this agreement and any rights and obligations hereunder at its sole discretion with 30 days prior notice. 26.5. Notice. Unless specified otherwise, any notices or other communications to members permitted or required under this agreement will be provided electronically and given by Airbnb via email, Airbnb platform notification, messaging service, or any other contact method we enable and you provide. If a notification relates to a booking or listing in Japan, you agree and acknowledge that such notifications via electronic means in lieu of a written statement satisfies Airbnb's obligations under Article 59 of the Japanese Housing Accommodation Business Act. 26.6. Third-party services. The Airbnb platform may contain links to third-party websites, applications, services, or resources that are subject to different terms and privacy practices. Airbnb is not responsible or liable for any aspect of such third-party services, and links to such third-party services are not an endorsement. 26.7. Google terms. Some translations on the Airbnb platform are powered by Google. Google disclaims all warranties related to the translations, express or implied, including any warranties of accuracy, reliability, and any implied warranties for merchantability, fitness for a particular purpose, and non-infringement. Some areas of the Airbnb platform implement Google Maps, Earth mapping services, including Google Maps API. Your use of Google Maps, Earth is subject to the Google Maps, Google Earth additional terms of service. 26.8. Apple terms. If you access or download our application from the Apple App Store, you agree to Apple's Licensed Application End User License Agreement. 26.9. Airbnb platform content. Content made available through the Airbnb platform may be protected by copyright, trademark, and/or other laws of the United States and other countries. You acknowledge that all intellectual property rights for that content are the exclusive property of Airbnb and/or its licensors, and agree that you will not remove, alter, or obscure any copyright, trademark, service mark, or other proprietary rights notices. You may not use, copy, adapt, modify, prepare derivative works of, distribute, license, sell, transfer, publicly display, publicly perform, transmit, broadcast, or otherwise exploit any content accessed through the Airbnb platform except to the extent you are the legal owner of that content or as expressly permitted in these terms. Subject to your compliance with these terms, Airbnb grants you a limited, non-exclusive, non-sublicensable, revocable, non-transferable license to download and use the application on your personal device, and access and view the content made available on or through the Airbnb platform and accessible to you solely for your personal and non-commercial use. 26.10 Airbnb.org. Airbnb.org is a nonprofit corporation exempt from income taxation under U.S. Internal Revenue Code Section 501, operating as a public charity. Airbnb.org is not owned or controlled by Airbnb. Airbnb.org administers a number of charitable programs that benefit our hosts and guest communities and the public. 26.11 Force majeure. Airbnb shall not be liable for any delay or failure to perform resulting from causes outside its reasonable control, including, but not limited to, acts of God, natural disasters, war, terrorism, riots, embargoes, acts of civil or military authorities, fire, floods, accidents, pandemics, epidemics or disease, strikes or shortages of transportation facilities, fuel, energy, labor, or materials. 26.12 Emails and SMS. You will receive administrative communications from us using the email address or other contact information you provide for your Airbnb account. Enrollment in additional email subscription programs will not affect the frequency of these administrative emails, though you should expect to receive additional emails specific to the program to which you have subscribed. You may also receive promotional emails from us. No fee is charged for these promotional emails, but third-party data rates could apply. You can control whether you receive promotional emails using the notification preferences in your account settings. Please note that you will not be able to take advantage of certain promotions if you disable certain communication settings or do not have an Airbnb account. In the U.S., if you consent to receive SMS from us, you will be subject to our SMS terms. 26.13 Contact us. If you have any questions about these terms, please email us. End Airbnb's terms of service. Enjoy your night.